Cornelia, I can't hear you if you're talking. I'm sorry.
I am reading to myself to make sure that I remember how to read when I'm reading the open
Can
forum.
everybody else hear Cornelia?
Yes, I can.
Right,
Can you
must
hear
be
her
me.
now?
Sorry, I'll figure it out.
Can
Yeah,
you
no,
hear
sorry.
me?
I was moving my mouth, so it gave the impression that I was talking, but I'm just reading out loud because I have a long paragraph to read, and I'm just, I haven't had coffee, and I'm just trying to remember how to read this morning. That's so yeah. Thank you for that. How are you, John?
Hi, sorry, I was distracted.
And I said, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I am tired.
Yes, understood. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the March meeting of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. My name is Cornelia Stevens. I'm Executive Director of Top A Learning Centers in Wichita, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the chair of the panel. This is a remote meeting, so today's meeting materials are posted on the panel meetings webpage on the Children's Cabinet website at kschildrenscabinet.org. Panel members will clearly identify themselves when they begin speaking, and they can use their raise hand features to show that they're ready to share. So if you on the panel have comments or questions or anything like that, you can either raise your hand or click the little icon to raise hand. That way, Lindsay and I, will, or Brianna will not forget you, when you have questions. We skipped last month's meeting and in place had a early childhood governance summit. It was a really great opportunity for us to hear the amazing things that are happening across the state that benefit our Kansas children and families. We had a welcome from Melissa Rooker, who is the executive director of the Kansas Children's Cabinet. We had a legislative update from John Wilson from Kansas Action for Children, and we heard from 13 different early childhood governance groups. Again, amazing to be able to hear everything that's happening in Kansas. And we have this really amazing graphic recording that really outlines everything that was discussed. That is available on the SharePoint Hub for any panel members and also on the Children's Cabinet website, if anybody would be interested, in having, a copy of this for themselves. But I think it really does. I love looking at the graphic recordings and how everything is pulled together because it really does summarize everything well. Next slide. For today's meeting, we will approve the March agenda. We will then approve the January meeting minutes. Those minutes were sent out already, so everybody has had a chance to look at those. We do have something to discuss for the Kansas Open Forum, so I'll be reading something that someone sent in for comment. We'll have an update on our All In for Kansas strategic plan. We'll have an update on our Kansas legislative session. We will have an overview of the lived expert engagement model. Work groups will have an opportunity to give reports and updates of things that are happening within their groups. And we will have bright spots. So this is your first warning to start thinking about wonderful things that have been happening within your organization, within different groups that you're in, within your community. And no matter how big or how small, we want to be able to hear the bright spots and the things that are happening in your area and your world. So this is the heads up, to start thinking about some bright spots. And then we're going to adjourn. We'll have about a 10-minute break, and then work groups will have the opportunity to meet following today's meeting. So the first is we're going to approve the March agenda. So again, the agenda was sent out by Lindsay. So do I have a motion to approve the March agenda as presented?
This is Maritas. I move to approve the March agenda.
Perfect. May I have a second?
This is Lisa Gehring. I second.
Great. All those in favor say aye. Or
Aye.
thumbs up. There you go. And any opposed? Perfect. January minutes were also sent out. They do a wonderful job of capturing all of the minutes, and so thank you for that. If there are no changes or modifications to the January minutes, may I have a motion to approve the January minutes as presented?
This is Kathy Gray. I make a motion to approve.
Perfect. And may I have a second?
This is Natalie McLean. I'll second.
Thank you, Natalie. All those in favor, thumbs up. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. So each month we have a Kansas Open Forum, and this is where Kansans are encouraged to submit comments through the Kansas Open Forum comment form, which is on the Kansas Children's Cabinet website by 5 p.m. the day preceding each meeting, where they have an opportunity to share written comments or to sign up to share verbal comments with the panel during this portion of the meeting. We do have something that was submitted from someone, which I will go on ahead and read to everyone, and then we'll leave opportunity for discussion if anybody would like to give additional insight or comment. This actually was submitted on behalf of Gretchen Shanahan, and her words are as follows. iPads or screens have no place in the early childhood setting. Any benefits routes come from those who have a stake in the success of EdTech rather than the children. I'm happy to recommend various books that explain this. I've been a parent who has been studying this since 2018, and if you look behind the curtain, all roads lead to industry profit, where children become more sedentary and more dependent on digital media to give them information and entertainment. Parents and caregivers have been deceived and need ongoing education to counter the marketing and false claims made by industry. EdTech is big tech in sheep's clothing. Our family is currently in a class action lawsuit against an EdTech company. Many claim the data they collect is de-identified, but they own many apps and platforms, buying up other companies. And then they sell data to data brokers for advertisers. Data brokering is enormously profiting and off our children, and data and then identity resolution companies re-identify the data to the child, creating the dossier on a student. This is seriously unethical, but society at large is uninformed. The harms are still unknown beyond this. Data and privacy are but only one harm to our children. So, we give opportunity for people to share any comment that they have, and so this is obviously an individual who has very strong feelings about screen time and, iPads and the purpose of that in a classroom environment in an early childhood setting. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts, regarding any of this? And if not, then, I will leave this here. And if you have an interest in following up with Gretchen, Lindsay said that she does have her contact information, and you can certainly connect with her that way. But do we have anyone that has any additional comments or thoughts?
This is Maritas. This is a timely comment. The open forum comment. We are at the LICC retreat that is being planned for the next one, I believe next year, sometime in the fall. We'll be dealing with screen time in early childhood.
Very timely. Yeah, very timely. And so it'll be interesting to see, and there's definitely pros and cons, right? You definitely see the benefit, of some technology in helping our children, but when is enough too much? And is it necessary? So Melissa, I see your hand up. You're on mute. I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you. I apologize. This is Melissa Martin. And the thing I would like to address is to just assure this commenter, Gretchen Shanahan, as well as anyone else, that we would never, ever, ever sell children's data. And the data collection system that we have, and I feel would be true for many others, is in-house, not connected to a big tech firm. So if that would be somewhat reassuring to Ms. Shanahan, I wanted to share that.
Thank you, Melissa. Hillary.
Good morning. This is Hillary Kane with Kansas Parents as Teachers Association, and I just wanted to echo what Maritas had said. We are actually providing a screen time training today for all of our PAT programs and CAPATA members. That's happening this afternoon. And we actually have had Gretchen come and share some additional information and data with the PAT programs, which has been very informative. In addition to that, I just wanted to share that we are currently partnering to start a new website and project to support families in Kansas called Just 10 Minutes that will be rolled out next week. And so I will be sharing more about that. The idea behind it being that we have asked for educators across the state to share ideas to replace screen time in just 10 minutes. So other activities that you would do in normal day-to-day routine that would be supporting parents and families with how to remove those screens and be doing some of the things that some of us have forgotten how to do, such as nursery rhymes and finger plays and songs and things like that. So just be watching for more information to come out about that. We're really excited about the initiative.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Karen?
I would just like to acknowledge that it's wonderful that we had the open forum so that Gretchen was able to make her public statement so that conversation could happen around it.
Agreed. Yep, agreed. Any other comments, questions, etc.? Well, Gretchen, if you're watching, thank you again for submitting the open forum comment. Again, if anyone is interested in hearing more, I'm hearing, Hillary say that she has come and presented to PAT. If you're interested in hearing more about her research and the things that she's experienced, Lindsay's happy to connect you to her. So you can reach out to Lindsay and she can make that connection. Next slide. Next, we are going to hear from Megan Kluth, who is going to give an update in the All In for Kansas strategic plan.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the time. I'm Megan Kluth. I'm a research project manager at the University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research. I'm actually going to focus my updates today on Kansas's preschool development grant. All things in the preschool development grant fall under the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan. But as a reminder, this is a pretty significant federal grant that Kansas has had. This is now the fourth time we have PDG funding, and we are currently about halfway through our first year of 3 years. So each month I'm going to share a little bit of like what's kind of upcoming in the next couple months and ways that we can work with you all to create the most impact. So a few updates, childcare zones. KDHE launched an initiative called Childcare Zones earlier this year. This is a funding opportunity for a minimum of 2 counties to come together and apply for funding to take a really collaborative approach to solve very local childcare needs. So they put together an interview committee and did a series of interviews earlier this month with several communities. There was a lot of interest from around the state, and it was a really robust process. And a group of communities have been invited to apply for the first round of funding, which will, the deadline is in a couple of weeks in early April. There's going to be a second round of applications that will be due later in August. That is open to any community that wants to apply. And I wanted to highlight that technical assistance is going to be available starting in mid-April leading up to that August date. So if you're in a county that has like a childcare task force or coalition or is just really interested in addressing childcare and they aren't aware of the childcare zones, this is good timing. I'm happy to put or Lindsay, if you don't mind putting my email in the chat, I'm happy to talk to anybody and make connections, but just want to make sure people are aware of this. It's kind of a different approach to childcare at the community level, and it's a really exciting opportunity for Kansas. And then also along the childcare lines, the Childcare Systems Improvement Team, also known as the SIT, has been hosting regional roundtables around the state. They've now hosted 3. They did Abilene, Wichita and Topeka. They will be in Garden City for Southwest Kansas on May 20th. So Lindsay put the flyer in on the slide here, and we can send it out with the notes. If you know anybody in Southwest Kansas that's interested in childcare, this is a conversation that's open to the public. They've been really rich conversations about both what's working well related to childcare, and then also where are there challenges and where are there opportunities for the state and system to be hearing those challenges. And I think particularly as we get into some of the more rural areas, like we know that the challenges look a little different in rural settings than in urban, and also what is needed in Northeast Kansas is probably different than Southwest. So appreciate your help in sharing the flyer for May 20th. And there are plenty of ways for people to share input related to childcare and childcare licensing, even if they can't make it. So this is really just an effort to get out in the communities and create more consistent feedback loops to hear what's working well and where there is room for improvement. I know my colleague Sarah Gardner, last time she was here, shared the Future Fellows. So this is a program that CPPR has been leading for a few years now. It's a group that this time is going to be focused specifically on people in the early childhood system. So it'll be a cohort of people from all across the state that come together for several months around kind of training and learning from each other about like innovation and how to apply like some futures thinking in their day-to-day work. So we are working on an application now, and my hope is by the next time I come that application will be live. I will make sure that Lindsay has it as soon as it's available so she can send it out. But we are hoping to see interest from throughout the state. And again, like if you have any questions as we're you following the meeting, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Next slide. Okay, a few more upcoming events. This is like a big event time for PDG this spring. We're excited to host for the first time what we're calling regional care and well-being conferences around early childhood. So these are, we're going to start in Garden City and Hayes in early May. So it's a Tuesday, Thursday of the same week. We'll get flyers out soon. These are completely free and open to the public. They're really designed for families as well as professionals across early childhood, across the mental health system to come together. There will be, the focus is pretty broadly on like early childhood mental health and just general kind of care and well-being. And there will be opportunities for people to attend like specific sessions on different topics around mental health and kind of specialized care needs, as well as just connect with each other. So it's I think for professionals, I would say it's like definitely a professional development opportunity. It's also a place for families and providers to come literally sit at the same table and just talk about like how things are going with early childhood and just build some connections. There are going to be KDHE in-service hours available for professionals, and there is some compensation available for families who attend. So those flyers should be ready within a week or so. And again, I'll have Lindsay share that out. And we would really appreciate you getting the word out in the community. It's like I think 10 to 4 time frame. People can certainly drop in, and there will also be free resource tables for any organization in the community that wants to share what they're doing. We're really trying to kind of cast as broad of a net as possible of like all the different groups that a family might get support from in their community. So I mean, early childhood and beyond, and really just kind of build more community and resource sharing. And over the course of PDG, we will do 2 of these in each grant year. So it'll be Southwest and Northwest this year, and then we'll start moving east next year. So we really appreciate your help in getting the word out. And this is the first time we're doing it. So we're excited to see how it goes. I also wanted to highlight there's quite a bit of funding going toward different training needs for early childhood professionals as well as families in PDG. And one that is, I think, particularly interesting and I think needed is we have a group that is they run a mental health informed childcare outside of Wichita, and they have they're doing some coaching and consultation for any childcare provider in Kansas that is interested in kind of learning mental health best practices. Both of the women that lead that are therapists by trade and kind of came into the childcare space. And so I think they've got a really interesting model, and they, along with our partners at CAME, are doing kind of a package of different mental health focused trainings. So the idea for this is if there's trainings available, there's then also groups within PDG that are able to kind of come in with that like practical application. I think we can all relate to that idea of you go to a training and it sounds so wonderful, and then you get back to your day-to-day setting and you're like, wait, how do I apply that? And so Mindful Minis or Mindful Collective is the group that is able to kind of come in and provide some of that additional coaching and consultation. So there are other trainings available, but I specifically wanted to note that because I think we continue to hear anecdotally just the need for more mental health support and awareness, and their focus is really on mental health for kids in care, as well as just in kind of supporting interactions with the adults who are also caring for them. And so they do a lot of like reflective supervision and reflective practices for your own staff, and teacher-child interactions and all of that. So I put Bailey Mitchell is the lead on that. I put her contact information in here, and this is completely covered through PDG. So if you know any childcare providers that feel like this might be beneficial and just want to learn more, I would definitely encourage them to do so. Okay. In terms of opportunities to collaborate, I think the biggest ask we have of this group right now is to help promote opportunities. We really want to make sure that people are aware of what's available, and particularly as we get into some of the edges of the state, we want to make sure that we're seeing participation from all over Kansas. So again, we'll share some flyers following this meeting. If you can just help pass those along, if you have newsletters or in your networks, we really, really appreciate that. And also we have 29 different initiatives across PDG, so there's a lot. So I'm certainly not going to share every single one each time I come, but I'm more than happy to bring in partners to highlight specific initiatives that they're working on if there's anything that you are looking to learn more about, or see if there's a way that you can get involved as the panel. So with that, are there any questions?
If none, Megan, thank you so much for the updates.
Of course, thank you all.
Yes, absolutely. Next, we will hear from John Wilson, who will give an update on the Kansas, give a wrap up of our legislative session this year.
All right. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, great. And I would love to say it's fully wrapped up, but gang, it's not fully wrapped up. There's still some lingering issues out there. And if if I sound and look tired and weary, it is because that's true. It's been a long couple of days this week. It was the final week of the legislature meeting before they go on their break before the veto session. So I want to kind of give you a snapshot of where we are in the process. So last night at, I don't know, 11 o'clock-ish, the legislature adjourned until April 10th, when they'll come back and override any vetoes of bills that the governor might make, or they might also continue work on bills that are still working their way through the process and have the ability to still be worked. And I'll explain some of those in a second. So the legislature will have to be wrapped up by Saturday, April 12th. And if you are a regular follower of the legislature, you'll know that typically the legislative session goes from January until roughly May. And so to be totally wrapped up by April 12th is a new concept. And wrapping up April 12th has meant that the legislature and lawmakers have had to work at breakneck speed to build and pass a budget, sift through policy legislation and generally try to get along. And that truncated timeline, I think, has taken a toll on a number of advocates and those who are in the building with regularity. And it's also, I think, minimized the opportunity for a thoughtful public input in the legislative process. Okay, so that's a lay of the land. We can go to the next one. Thank you. If you were on the last legislative update at the governance summit, I'm kind of following a similar approach to that, and there's kind of updates on things that I highlighted back then. One of the biggest early childhood focused policies that was discussed and will continue to be discussed this session is the creation of the Office of Early Childhood, which would consolidate several programs and services into a single state agency. That early childhood Office of Early Childhood bill was found in Senate Bill 132 and House Bill 2294. Senate Bill 132 never had a hearing. House Bill 2294 had hearings in House Commerce. And eventually 2294 passed the House floor. Yesterday, not late in the evening, but in the evening, 2294, the contents of 2294 were placed into a shell bill. It's kind of a complicated process, but given where we are in the timing of the legislative process, oftentimes lawmakers will gut the contents of one bill and put the contents of another into it. Think of it like selecting all on a Word document, deleting it, and pasting in new content. That's what they did. So the Office of Early Childhood bill is now in a conference committee on a bill called 2045. So even these slides are slightly outdated as of last night. So if you're interested in the Office of Early Childhood, pay attention to 2045. And we'll have some time for questions too after this update. Senate Bill 207 and House Bill 2383, those were identical bills that would provide telehealth services, a stipend for prescription medications, and also provide state funding to make up the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 on the CACFP program. Those bills never went anywhere, but because they were introduced in appropriations committees, they can technically be worked until the end of the session, but I don't see that happening. But they will be alive for the 2026 legislative session. All right. Economic security focused legislation. House Bill 2210 would establish a state child tax credit that's very similar to the federal child tax credit that many of us are familiar with. CTCs have shown to help lift children out of poverty, and it essentially is cash that families can spend any way that they want. Many of them spend them on childcare needs or just basic needs. So 2210 never had a hearing, and we don't expect any movement on it this session unless it gets added into another tax bill. But most of the tax energy is focused on property taxes this session, but it still remains for next legislative session. Senate Bill 179 is a similar CTC, but on the Senate side and goes to H5 instead of H3. There's no hearing was scheduled. The Senate Democrats did attempt to bring that bill out of tax committee and have it debated by the full Senate. They made the motion on Wednesday, and the motion failed yesterday. 2119 is a bill that would eliminate the affordable housing tax credit. That bill passed the House. The Senate had a different position on it. They don't want to eliminate that affordable housing tax credit given the housing crisis we face. And right now, that bill and the subject of that bill is being debated in a Commerce Conference Committee, and there still can be a resolution this legislative session. They'll likely take it up as April 10th through the 12th. 2074 would include renters in an existing homestead property tax credit. There was a hearing on that, but the bill never went anywhere. And the only way I think it'll really see any progress this session, again, is if it's added to other tax bills that are in conference committee. And if you're not familiar, just really quickly, a conference committee is what is created when the House and Senate each pass the same bill, but they make their own changes to it. So they have to get together and work out the differences between the same piece of legislation. And it's also a vehicle to add other similar policies or bills to it. So I think of it like bundling insurance or bundling cable and internet or that sort of thing. That can all happen during a conference committee. Okay. Let's move on to, are we on health focused ones next, Lindsay? Let me see here. Oh yeah, health focused ones. 2386 and 271 were identical bills that would update eligibility for the Children's Health Insurance Program. Kansas is the only state that currently ties its eligibility to a specific poverty measure from a specific year. So in this case, it's tied to the 2008 poverty level, which obviously means fewer kids are eligible for the Children's Health Insurance Program. And so we've been working years with partners to get this fixed permanently, but it's always been done through a budget proviso process, which is basically policy for 1 year. So 2386 had a hearing on March 5th, 271 never had a hearing. Ultimately, that issue was bundled with a handful of other issues, including funding for newborn screening or kind of eliminating the cap on newborn screening program, some public health funding, and some other things. It was bundled into a bill, I think Senate Bill 126, but ultimately the conference committee couldn't come to agreement on the CHIP component of it, so it was taken out. But Senate Bill 126 did pass and I think is on its way to the governor now, that includes some good provisions for kids and for public health. And they've health-focused committee members have agreed to study the CHIP issue next legislative session. But there still is the budget proviso that addresses the eligibility issue for CHIP for another fiscal year. Senate Bill 79 would have had the impact of disallowing SNAP recipients from purchasing soda or candy with their benefits. That bill passed the Senate and passed the House. But as you can see from the numbers, particularly in the House, if the governor vetoes that bill, then there doesn't appear to be the numbers to override that veto. But that concept shows up now in a budget, in the budget, which we can talk about in a second. So we can go to the budget now. When the legislative session started, the budget was House Bill 2007. And what was interesting this year is instead of the legislature working from the governor's budget recommendation, it developed its own budget bill and kind of largely ignored the budget proposal that the governor put forth. And so completely new process this year. The House passed their version of the budget and slightly below veto-proof majorities. And then on the Senate side, they took the House's work and put it into a different bill, into Senate Bill 125. So that's the budget bill, and that budget did pass both chambers last night, and it's on its way to the governor for consideration. And as a reminder, the governor can line item veto budget items instead of outright vetoing the whole thing. Governor Kelly can go line by line and tweak some things. I think important to note is this is a considerably smaller budget than last year. Typically what you see is just kind of steady increases in the budget just for inflationary purposes, or just it's hard for lawmakers to cut spending. But this year, the budget is smaller than last fiscal year's budget. It included across the board agency cuts and some other tweaks to it. I wanted to highlight, I'm going to read from a list because it's just, since the budget just passed last night, I couldn't get it formatted for slides, but a couple things that might be of interest from an early childhood perspective. $2.5 million was included for the Blue Cross Blue Shield State of Kansas Child Care Center partnership. There's money for a child care accelerator program for a project in Dodge City. The workforce registry funding was removed from the Children's Initiative Fund, and DCF is expected to pay for it from existing resources. Money for the Sunflower Summer Program, which provides activities for families in the summer, was kept in the budget, and it was almost deleted several times in the budget. The Summer EBT program, which helps families purchase food during the summer, the money stayed in there for that, but DCF now has to request that SNAP waiver on soda and candy that I mentioned previously. It was kind of these are my words, not anybody else's words, but it was kind of a little bit of extortion. If you want to feed kids in the summer, then you have to then the state will have to request that waiver that you can't purchase soda or candy with SNAP benefits. Also included in the budget, parents, caregivers no longer get 12 months of continuous eligibility in can care, which is not great. And then CIF money for KDHE childcare health and safety grants was deleted, and instead they're going to have to use existing resources if they want to do those health and safety grants. So I think those are the main topics in the budget that might be of interest to this group. Happy to answer any questions. And again, sorry for being a little low energy this morning. It's been a hard couple of days.
John, when you say that House Bill 2045 is now the new, I guess they've rolled in the Office of Early Childhood, verbiage into that. Is it everything that was in the previous bill, or just the Office of Early Child? Like, what did they roll in entirely, even all of the stuff that maybe isn't maybe the good stuff? Did they roll in everything?
Yeah, it all depends. Thanks, Cornelia. That's a great question. It all depends on what one thinks is the good stuff or the bad stuff.
Fair.
But
Yes, fair.
this is the bill that passed the House included the Office of Early Childhood. It also included some changes to vaccine exemption language for religious exemptions. It also included language about around when licensure is required, the number of hours of caring for a child before licensure is required. The bill that is the language now makes 35 hours the floor for licensure. It essentially says that KDHE can't adopt regulations that are less than 35 hours and less than 4 children, and no more than 2 of them can be infants. So if for those of you who follow KDHE regulations and policy closely, the current KDHE policy is that if you can care for up to 2 children, no more than 20 hours total in a week. So if it's 10 hours per kid, or if it's 2 kids and you do 10 hours, you've exhausted your 20 hours. So the language in the child care bill now says that the minimum is 35 hours a week, and potentially future administrations can go higher than 35 hours a week before licensure is required. So the short answer, I should have just said yes. All of the language is being proposed to be put into 2045. What happened last night is the conference committee met, gutted the contents of 2045, put in all of the contents of 2294, and they began to discuss 2 amendments, and they couldn't come to agreement on those amendments. So what we will see happen likely is April 10th, 11th, or 12th, that conference committee will reconvene and try to come to resolution on those amendments, and then all 6 members of that conference committee have to agree to those changes and agree to the contents of the bill. And if they do, then that bill goes to the House and to the Senate, where no amendments can be made. All they could do is say yes or no to it. And if they say no to it, they can send it back to conference committee to try to fix the part that caused the bill to fail, and then send it back out and try again. Does that make sense, Cornelia?
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for John?
So I was realizing one more thing, that as you all, the legislative process is a confusing process. So right now, because the conference committee hasn't agreed to the contents of 2045, you're going to look up House Bill 2045 and on the legislative website, and you'll see that the bill is reducing the title is reducing the number of board members appointed by the commissioner on certain insurance related boards and the frequency of the meetings of the committee on surety bonds and insurance. So until the conference committee agrees on changes and agrees on all the contents of 2294 being placed into 2045, it will not look like that is the child care bill, the Office of Early Childhood bill. You're going to have to wait for the committee to formally take action for that to show up officially on the legislative website. So until that happens, the only place to find the Office of Early Childhood legislation and language is House Bill 2294. I know that's kind of confusing.
No, I appreciate that because I actually wrote it down to look it up, and that would have been very confusing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Very good. Well, definitely a lot of work, you and your colleagues, our colleagues, who have been out advocating for Kansas children and families have put in, a lot of work, and we definitely thank you all for everything that you've done. This is especially the shortened session, was definitely made things a little bit different, this year, for sure. And I don't know whether they'll continue the route of the shortened session or we'll go back to normal next year. But anyhow, thank you for your efforts and for everybody that's been advocating and working with the legislature. Thank you for the work that you've been doing as well.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and it takes all of us working from our corners of the state and with our various hats on. So it's a team effort, gang.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Go take a nap. No napping. Okay, next we are going to have Dr. Kayla Byers, who is going to talk about the model of lived expert engagement for systems change.
Thank you so much. Hi all, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Kayla Byers. I'm an Associate Director at the KU Center for Public Partnerships and Research, and I'm here to talk today a little bit about a model of lived expert engagement for systems change. This is something that we do a lot here at CPPR, and there's a growing need and call for across all of systems work, across all of our systems. And so we have put together a model of how we engage this using many of the best practices from the literature and from the field, as well as from our own experiences with lived experts here in Kansas across many initiatives. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So what is a lived expert? We'll start there with a common understanding of what we're talking about. So a lived expert is any individual with direct personal experience with a system or an issue. Oftentimes these are around issues of that are paired with stigma. These are hard issues that people have experienced in life and have some hard-earned wisdom around, and have close experience with those systems and issues that can help make sure that our systems are shaped to adequately meet those needs. So these are often around child welfare involvement, early childhood involvement, use of early childhood services, developmental needs, mental health, substance use, all of these various things that families may encounter and navigate through gives them lived expertise. And lived experts are often engaged by these systems, by services, by programs, to serve in many, many different roles. Oftentimes those are direct service roles and sort of a peer support or service navigation role. A lot of times we have parent leaders and parent advocates who are using their voice and their story to help shape our services and systems with decision makers. And we also have subject matter experts, advisors, partners. There are many, many, many ways to involve lived experts in our systems change work. And you can see examples of that throughout all of the work that's happening in Kansas in a variety of ways. And as I mentioned, this has been, there's a variety and kind of a spectrum of involvement and engagement. And this has really been an evolution over time as we realized the deep value of partnering, really taking guidance from lived experts rather than acting out of our own knowledge base that's incomplete. Oftentimes we need multiple perspectives in order to make sure that we're meeting those needs. And so this lived expert engagement over time there is, call for and need for all various types over time and depending on what the specific need is. But also, as I mentioned, this is just deepened over time. We started with feedback on already established decisions, one-off opportunities to say, here was my experience. We then have moved over time into more of an advisor space where we've invited lived experts to serve on advisory boards and to reflect and provide that sort of standing guidance, but sometimes with decision making and sometimes without, more guidance and advisory space. And then there's also all the way at the other end of the spectrum, co-creation, and that's the space where we're really moving. And this model lives in this space and co-creation and really authentic partnership with lived experts where they're driving the plot. Like they really have true decision making at the table with everybody else. They are an expert partner and help co-create and drive what the systems and services look like. So why do we do that? We know there is evidence that programs that have been co-designed with lived experts are more effective. They're more aligned with community and cultural context. They're trusted by the community because of that. They are often more successfully implemented. And because of all of those factors, as I said, they're often more successful and effective for families. So we know that this is effective. We know there are many ways of engaging families. There's not an established model, even though there's a call more and more all the time for us to engage lived experts and for that to be a part of our process, a part of our systems that's formal. There's not an agreed upon model of what that looks like, how to do it, how to operationalize it and do it on a day-to-day basis. So we have, through this work, as I mentioned, where we've been doing it in partnership with lived experts, articulated this model. We worked really closely with several lived experts who are partners of ours through many initiatives, specifically 4 different initiatives that are statewide co-creation bodies. We have the Family First Family Council. We have lived expert cohorts on a variety of steering committees across the board and on our Thriving Families initiative for the state. So we partnered with those folks and really documented what we've been doing over the years that have been successful, that have really helped them deeply engage and have impact in our systems. And I'll share some of that impact back with you after I share what the core components of this model are. But as I said, we worked really closely with those partners and our implementation teams to determine what are the core things that make this successful. And then we have, as I said, some examples of impact that show that this model can be effective in engaging and realizing systems change. So these are the best practices that we've landed on in this model for lived expert engagement. And I'll go into each of these, but cohort structure, mechanisms of accountability, equity-based compensation, shared and deferred power, and low barrier entry are the essential components that we identified that, when present, really support that engagement in an impactful way. So cohort structure, what do we mean by this? This is a cohort, more than one person, not tokenizing any individual and bringing lived expertise into our efforts in groups. And this achieves a number of things. First of all, it does avoid that tokenization, that one person with that lone voice trying to share a singular perspective. This amplifies that voice in a group by having a larger number of people to offset other voices. And it also ensures that diversity of representation, diverse perspectives, experiences, encounters, interactions, ideas. And so bringing in multiple people really amplifies and exponentially grows the impact. It also provides that opportunity for peer support among the group and creates that sort of community of professional learning and development among those who are in that lived expert cohort, which really supports that ongoing engagement as they form that group identity. We've had really long-term engagement as a result of that. I mentioned the widespread representation of perspectives. It also increases your flexibility. Not everybody has the same level of interest, commitment, skills. And by having a cohort, you're able to leverage those skills, interests, match, and pair people to what is most suited and best fits their interests and skills. And that's just more effective. You're not trying to force a square peg in a round hole. You can give those opportunities and allow people to engage as they're most able to contribute. What this requires is really thoughtful outreach and recruitment. You have to reach into many, many communities and pockets and make sure that you're getting those variety of perspectives, that you're not, you know, taking those perspectives that come easily. Those are great too, but also you need to make sure that you're reaching deeply into communities to get that diversity of perspectives. Mechanisms of accountability. This is really, really important. And this really kind of goes back to ensuring that communities want to engage in this work, that lived experts feel safe and welcome and equipped to engage in this work, and also repair some of the harms of the past. The way that systems have engaged and research has engaged families hasn't always been productive and reciprocal. It has often taken and not given back. And so it's important in lived expert engagement to be accountable to those cohorts. So this includes supportive, transparent infrastructure that really equips members to be able to participate, to level that point of entry between insiders and outsiders, to make sure that they have what they need in terms of information, resources, terms of art and acronyms, the structures that help them participate. And that requires that you use anticipatory and co-design. So anticipatory design before you ever even begin to engage lived experts, building out some of that infrastructure so that they have a really easy entry. And then once you have lived experts, co-design, having them have a voice and what does it look like? What does their engagement look like going forward? And then we often really formalize that in a team charter that says all the roles and responsibilities. Here are all your resources and access, and how do you get what you need, and how do you elevate a concern, and what are the feedback loops? Those are all part of being accountable to that group. And then the second piece of this is the reciprocity, and that goes beyond financial compensation, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But this is ensuring that we don't just take perspectives, but that we're using perspectives and that we're sharing back, that their contributions are used and valued. So ensuring that those contributions reach decision makers either directly or that we facilitate that, and then closing those feedback loops. How were their recommendations used? What was changed as a result of that? And having that be in conversation with the lived experts. Next is equity-based compensation. So I mentioned that reciprocity is non-monetary, but it also is financial. There is a monetary piece of this where we want to affirm the expert contributions of lived experts. And so by doing so, we compensate them as any other expert. So we include a stipend or a wage of some kind. We try very hard to have that be commensurate with fair market wages. This is an area of an opportunity for growth for the entire field because our structures and mechanisms are not currently built for this. These have to be budgeted into budgets, and you need to account for this, early on. And so oftentimes we're retrofitting and trying to scrape together money to pay a stipend. We need to be more thoughtful and systematic about that in terms of building budget line items to support the things that are needed for that deep engagement, as we would any other consultant or staff member that is essential to our work. We need to make sure that we're also covering some of the other barriers so that it is that seamless entry, that transportation, the technology that they may need. They may not be sitting in an office using their work computer to join the meeting. Do they need a tablet? That can be part of the what's provided to them, or a laptop in order to be able to participate. Do they need childcare or transportation? And then there's also skill development opportunities, which is another non-monetary compensation where for example, one of our groups, we provided advocacy training around using your personal story for advocacy and education, building those skills that help build professional capacity for the members, but also further contribute to our success and to the success of the initiative. Compensation should avoid out-of-pocket costs. So as I mentioned, there's transportation and getting folks to meetings. Those should be paid in advance by the systems and services, programs, initiatives that are supporting lived experts, to just reduce that barrier that anybody may have in terms of fronting out-of-pocket expenses. Mentioned the fair market wages, but also including that in a written agreement, a formalized agreement in advance that articulates the terms of that includes flexible payment schedules and banking options. Sometimes lived experts may have, we've run into alternative banking like chime accounts and needing to have your structures be able to use those things. You know, sometimes our university structures are like, no, that we don't have mechanisms for that. And we have to say, we need this, let's build it. What do we need to do to change this so we can do this? And so we just need to always be prepared to do that when it comes to lived expert engagement, because as I said, our systems aren't built for it yet. And then importantly, we need to disclose and accommodate what is needed to manage tax benefit and employment implications. Giving stipends and additional payment can have implications for benefits cliffs, for tax purposes. And so we work with all of our members to say, you know, do you want half your stipend in this tax year and half in this tax year? Like we're flexible around that in order to meet their needs so that we're not causing more harm by trying to be fair and equitable in our compensation. Shared and conferred power. This is a really important piece also in terms of that repair of past system harms. So this is that true engagement and leveling that hierarchy of power and saying, we're in this together. We're going to share our power. And so our perspectives together will use our shared power to amplify. This is really intended to enhance our decision making, our accountability, and create impact by being able to strategically use this tool. So shared power is when we do the collaborative decision making and we have co-ownership of those outcomes together. Conferred power is when one person has more power than the other and turns that decision making power over. And this is oftentimes really useful when, like I said, somebody holds more power, and when the lower person with less power has higher stakes involved. This is the case almost always when we're talking about lived experts. So when we can say, what's your decision here, and then we take that forward, that's really powerful. So both of these can be deployed through co-design, through over-representation. So by having a large cohort that is a large proportion of an advisory group, that's a way of sharing power, making sure that voice is loud and taking up space in the room and being heard. And also that articulated power sharing. I talked about the team charter, writing it down. Who has decision-making power and how? What are the feedback loops and communication? And when is that power shared? When is it not? So that it's known and not a surprise. And then the way that this is implemented is strategically, as I mentioned. I mean, the point is to level the playing field and to lower power differentials, but also to create impact. So considering the credibility of the messenger in any given space, maybe it's more impactful to hear from lived experts. Maybe the situation is contentious and somebody with more power needs to be the voice and the face in order to protect more vulnerable members. There are a lot of reasons why you might use one strategy over another. The point is to be mindful about it, to be intentional about it, and to use it strategically. Last core component, low barrier entry. This is really rooted in the values of the right to human dignity, to worth, and self-determination. We all get to decide our lives. And so this is a stance that we take, that lived expert engagement requires participation that's free of assumptions or litmus tests of readiness. Their commitment is their readiness by saying, hey, I have some earned wisdom that I think I can share to the system, qualifies you as a lived expert. There are no other qualifications required. And so But the way we're able to be that open is by saying there are many opportunities and ways to participate. What do you have to offer here that you want to bring to the system? And let's find a way to leverage that. So this has to be, as I said, mentioned by those this has to be supported by the flexible opportunities, those opportunities to pair level of interest, level of time, capacity to what is needed, that creative outreach and really reaching into lots of different pockets of the community and making sure that you don't have to know the right person to get involved in the system work, that you have opportunities to share that wisdom out without having to seek it out. And then finally, that really supportive infrastructure eases that entry so that there aren't barriers to being able to truly participate. So I mentioned impacts. What have we seen from implementing? We've been implementing initiatives all over the state and elsewhere, engaging deeply in co-creation with lived experts. And we've seen the fruits of that through many, many opportunities. And we see that in a number of different ways. We see lived experts framing the way we interpret and understand issues. We see them shaping the service array. We see them revising policy. There are huge impacts that are being driven by families and their contributions to the system. So in terms of understanding interpreting what's happening and understanding from the family perspective, this happens in many, many different ways. One example of this is in one project that we have in Southeast Kansas, where we're working with a large community collaborative and have done what we call community sense making, where we're using stories from the community that are contributed by the community through a survey that is openly available. And we come together, and the stories are about what it's like to live in your community and raise a family. What does community mean to you? What does seeking help in your community mean to you? We come together as a community, members of the community, service providers, decision makers, anybody is welcome. And we make sense of those data. What does it mean? What does it mean about our systems? What are we seeing in terms of gaps, opportunities for growth? And we've been doing that over the last couple of years in Southeast Kansas, and that has shaped the services, the programs, and the approach to serving families in that region. We've had opportunity to rethink what was planned in a large initiative and say, hey, we need to sequence these. We need to strengthen this part of the system before we can ask families to do this. And that was directly from the view of lived experts. And they've really helped shape the way the community thinks about family support. Another example of this was in that same sense making. There have been decisions made at the community level about how the community views the balance between protecting child safety and preserving families, and where they want to sit as a community in terms of that value. So there's a lot of both philosophical and real life tangible things that are happening as a result of including those perspectives at the table with everybody else and saying, what do families need? And really listening and engaging and integrating those perspectives. We've also been able to shape the service array with that lived expert engagement. So I mentioned the Family First Family Council as one of the lived expert co-creation bodies that exists here in Kansas. And this board has been in existence for the last 5 years since Kansas adopted Family First. And they have worked side by side with DCF all along the way to review programs and initiatives and to think about the implementation of Family First and what does that mean and what do families need in Kansas. And in the last year, the Family Council had the opportunity at the invitation of DCF, so this is an example of conferred power, to write recommendations for the renewal of the prevention plan, the statewide prevention plan, shaping the service array for Family First and our approach to prevention in the state. The Family Council had an opportunity to say, here's what we think based on our expertise should happen. And they put forth a set of recommendations. The DCF is working to take up in a phased approach, and they're exploring how to adopt those recommendations directly from the lived expert group. So that included shaping how families are able to access those services, what kinds of services were in the array that are offered, and the ways that we support families and and manage those services. So these are real deep institutional changes that are coming from the perspectives of families that systems are taking up and using. So really, really impactful. And then again, another example of policy opportunities and this sort of shared and conferred power through the Family Council work. DCF and the Family Council and the DCF Policy Work Group developed a mechanism for the community, including the Family Council, to be able to put forth formal policy recommendations for consideration by their work group. And so there's a form that's available that we are able to use and say, here's a policy we think might need to be changed. Here's why, here's what we think. And then that can be taken up in their formal policy review process. That was recently used by another initiative that includes a lived expert cohort who have identified some policy needs related to connecting families to early childhood supports. Some ways to tweak some of the policy that DCF holds that will help support making family connections. And so we've been able to put forward those recommendations from that group, including lived experts, and DCF is considering those now. So there's real opportunity to create acceptable solutions that can be taken up at the system level when you deeply engage lived experts and move our systems towards a more family-driven, family-informed system that truly meets their needs. So with that's the model, and that's the why of it. Why would we want to engage lived experts? And then there's the how. We are working on some guidance documents around that, a little bit of how to and a little bit of brief language, and we'll be sure to share that back out as that's developed. But we wanted to share our successes so that this can be taken up in other spaces as well. So we really encourage you to take up these ideas wherever you sit, but also in the recommendations panel, there's recruitment for lived expert members is opening soon, and I'll let Lindsay speak more specifically to that, but this will be for the next term. And the eligibility is for parents of a child currently receiving services from the state. And the call to action here is for all panel members to help recruit members who may be interested in serving on the panel in the coming term. There's a stipend associated with this that pays for attendance at each meeting, and then also includes childcare expenses for those times when a child would not be in school. Lindsay, anything you want to add about this ask?
No, I really appreciate you giving the overview, and Cornelia is going to talk a little bit later about the panel application, which is opening now, essentially. But yeah, Kayla, thank you so much for talking through all of this. I was just so excited. I know we've been talking about all of these ideas a lot over the last few years, but hearing more details about the kind of the model that the group has put together, it just felt like something that our panel members might really appreciate knowing more about, at least having an introduction to be able to go and consider applying some of these things across all of the different organizations and groups and communities that everyone is a part of. So it's certainly applicable to the panel itself because we are a governance group. We do have sort of our lived expert category, as Kayla mentioned, is the parent of a child currently receiving services. But yeah, just wanted to at least kind of offer this as an opening for others. And there's more information, as Kayla mentioned, there's more resources and other things that can be shared to help others across the state work through this within your groups as well. But I was just really excited about it, and I really appreciate you coming to speak to everyone.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
If none, Kayla, thank you for sharing all of this. I'm especially excited about the idea of a stipend and helping for with childcare and all of that if we were to have lived experts on the panel. And so I definitely think this is great information. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I will drop my email in the chat, and if there are any questions after the fact, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Very good, thank you. Next, we will hear work group presentations, and we'll start with family-friendly workplaces. So may I have a spokesperson for that group, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Cornelia. My name is Dana Book. I'm with the Kansas Children's Service League, and I get to be your spokesman today, but I will throw it back to the team when I finish here. So we've been really active. I usually come on here and say, okay, this will be short, and I will try to make it short too, but we have done a lot of research. As some background, we are working towards a recognition piece for employers that have implemented family-friendly workplace policies. That's feedback that we've received over the years of doing the survey, kind of a what's in it for me type thing. And the recognition piece has come forward. And so it exists in some form already, but we're really trying to flesh out what that looks like, primarily what the criteria would be for an employer to be recognized. And so that's really where we're at now. And so we've spent a lot of time. There are other states that do this, other entities that do this. So we put our brains on the internet and put Chat GPT to work. And well, I don't know that we actually did that, but we did a lot of research into this. We met with, or actually Brenda met with North Carolina, and possibly Melissa. Some of us met with North Carolina, and then another group of us met with New Mexico, who does very similar work, mostly to get some ideas and get some feedback as to what doesn't work, so we're not replicating those issues. And so we have some things that we're kind of, like I said, kind of fleshing out now what those bullet points look like. We've got a draft recommendation that we kind of can work from now and really start to fill that in. So that is where we are. We're making some good progress. Brenda, Melissa, Bethany, anybody else have anything else to add to that?
Nothing from Melissa.
Thank you. So I will say, as a sidebar to this, we are always looking for employers to implement the survey, and that's an open invitation to anybody on the screen right now. But Department of Commerce actually signed on to implement the survey. I think they launch it next week, which that's a big thing, right? And so Secretary Toland or Lieutenant Governor Toland, depending where you're standing, had said, yes, we want to do this, but when we move to the new building, I want that decal for the window. So that's kind of how important that is. And so that'll be fun. It'll be exciting. So I'm open for questions.
If none, thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
May I have a spokesperson for the exit interviews work group?
Good morning, everyone. This is Stephanie Wiggins. We met since our last panel meeting, the large group. We met again and really focused on reviewing the exit interview questions that we have drafted with a data-focused lens. And we're able to make some edits and changes based off of that feedback. And then we also met with some key stakeholders to gather some more perspectives. And then this meeting and moving forward, we're looking to plan our formal recommendation over the next couple of months. And I would say overall on track, making good progress.
You got any questions for Stephanie? If not, thank you. May I have a spokesperson for the mental health supports work group?
Good morning. This is Hillary Kane with Capata, and I'll be sharing about the mental health support group. I'm going to read from my notes because it is Friday, and as many of us have shared, I think it's been a long, long week. So our group's been working to really narrow our scope down following conversations and data that was shared from the workforce study. So we have been discussing potentially looking at 3 systems which we feel could have a larger, more significant impact. Those possibly being affordable and accessible substitute services, reflective supervision, both training and implementation, and support there, as well as mental health therapy services. And so our next steps today, we did briefly meet after the summit last month and have a little bit of discussion. But our next steps today are that we are going to be reviewing our shared board where all of the committee members have prioritized their ideas and thoughts to kind of help us with determining our focus and what we're going to be working from next. So any questions from me? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. May I have a spokesperson for the Targeted Journey Recruitment Work Group?
Yeah, this is Amy Godchammer for recruitment. I'm going to admit we are struggling, and I think we're finally coming to the realization that our group is broad, really broad. And every time we come up with ideas and we start tracking them down and going down different rabbit holes, we come up realizing that our work falls under somebody else's umbrella. And we're really now trying to see if maybe what we need to do is either be a bigger umbrella for everybody else, or if there's some other role that our group needs to play. Because as we go through the work that we've done recently, in terms of recruitment and retention for the workforce, some of the big things that come to mind are work that has either recently been done or is currently being done, like compensation and benefits. That was just what we did last year. We had a whole group that worked on compensation and benefits. And then the other thing that keeps rising to the surface is mental health and wellness, which of course we have a whole group working on that right now. We spent some time talking to a group of people that work with early childhood providers on a statewide level, and it's something I think would actually be great for Kansas. But again, it's not our umbrella to be under. That was another group's work. Does it help for recruitment and retention? Absolutely. But it's somebody else's narrow focus, really not ours. And so then there's, of course, the aspect of entering and staying engaged in education as a provider. That helps you feel a part of the group, makes you feel proud of the work you're doing. That keeps you staying in the field. That helps bring you into the field. But then already we've got Childcare Aware, we've got Casito, we've got ECHO, we've got Equip, we've got other groups already doing that work. So we're really kind of trying to figure out, where exactly do we fit? What is our best role? Do we get together with the leaders of all of these different groups and try to bring something together in a bigger package? Because there's no reason for us to duplicate efforts. People are already focusing on these areas, and it's just really feeling like recruitment and retention is just a bigger umbrella over all of these other areas that are very, very important to recruitment and retention. And we're just really broad. So we're open to suggestions, and we're open to helping people. Maybe our group needs to be a part of other groups in a different way. But we're continuing to work, and we're continuing to come up with ideas that can be helpful to others. And we just like the work we did this last month. And I met with these people from South Carolina and Arkansas that are working on mental health supports, shared that with Marie's group. We're happy to keep doing that, but that's kind of where we're finding is that our work keeps falling under other people's umbrellas. So we're a little bit at a stumbling block here. So we're open to suggestions on that, and we want to keep working, but we're a little troubled.
Well, Amy, thank you for your candidness and your honesty in terms of like where you are with the group. There is for any of the work groups, not just specifically to yours, as we go through kind of and do our dissecting and looking at the needs and looking at possible solutions, and you're experiencing things like this, like, okay, but this is already being addressed here or here or here. There's nothing that says that we can't decide that we can put a check mark by the Targeted Journey Recruitment work group because we feel like there is a broader the topic area is so broad that it's actually being touched on in so many different groups, and that the members of that work group kind of get dispersed to other work groups where they can continue to add their insights or whatnot to areas that that might come up, like the mental health or whatever. So someone joins the mental health supports group, and then somebody else joins the something else group or whatever. So I mean, there's nothing that says that can't happen. And so I don't want you to feel like, and Lindsay, if I'm making stuff up, then go on ahead and tell me. But thank you. Okay, that's good. Because I've been known to do that. So there's nothing that says that you have to continue to meet because you're expected to continue to meet, where you're then trying to find stuff, to focus on. So if it makes more sense and it's better use of your time, to have members, maybe Lindsay, reach out to the members and see if there's an interest in joining one of the other work groups. And then you continue making the connections that you've been making, where you are finding people from other agencies or whatnot to connect with those work groups. Then there's an easier way for you to go about doing that, as opposed to meeting for the sake of meeting.
Right. Well, we do have a meeting planned for today, and we're going to discuss it a little bit further after our meeting here. So unless we come up with some really bright ideas and we can find a way for us to truly focus in a direction that nobody else is already covering, then that might exactly be what we need to do.
Okay, alrighty. And so, Amy, will you or someone follow up with Lindsay and I and let us know kind of which direction you landed, so that way then Lindsay can start making assignments, or give you the thumbs up to continue on or whatnot if you find something. Marie, I believe you have your hands up.
Yeah, I just want to toss out there that the mental health support group is small, and we would welcome members to come join us. Yeah, I hope I'm not over speaking, Hillary. Let me know if I am, but I would welcome that, and I think the group would also. Hillary, do you have a different thought?
Yeah, no, actually, you read my mind. I was actually getting ready to raise my hand to say the exact same thing, that I think that could be some really great collaboration. So if that's something that we can make happen, that would be good.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, Amy, we'll stay tuned. Thank you again for that. And next, may I have a spokesperson for the System Progress Communications Group?
Good morning, everyone. This is Kelly, and I'm reporting out for that group. We decided our action item coming out of the winter was to focus on building an inventory to kind of look at all of the different work groups or just in groups across the state and who they represent as far as early childhood, and then start to hopefully get a sense of how communication flows. We are pretty close to, I use the word finalize because I know it's always going to be sort of a moving target. But after the summit, at the last meeting, we were able to fill in a lot of gaps. And so today we are going to be discussing, now that we've built that inventory, how could it be shared out, or should it be shared out, or what that would look like. Just kind of the next steps for us is what we're going to work on today. So I'm happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, great to hear the progress and things that are happening with each one of the work groups, and I look forward to continued updates next month. As was mentioned earlier, we have applications are now open for the 25-26 panel. And so it is open to any Kansan interested in serving on working on with the Early Childhood Advisory Council, known as the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. And applications are accepted from April 1st through May 2nd. It is a one-year term from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Panel members are encouraged to reapply. And then also share with others. If there's people within other colleagues that you have that are not currently panel members, but you think might, have a voice and want to be a part of, kind of shaping and guiding and giving recommendations or whatnot to the world of early childhood in Kansas, please certainly encourage them to apply as well. The Children's Cabinet Trust Fund website has a place where you can visit and apply for the panel. But Lindsay is going to go on ahead and share. She's going to share her screen and give some guidance so people know how to access that information.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to point everyone to the Children's Cabinet website where you can find information about the panel, including the link to apply. I'll obviously share this through email and everything with our current panel members, but in case you want to share this with others, this is a helpful resource to help them find additional information about the panel, those sort of things. So on the Children's Cabinet website, if you hover on About, there's a whole section for the recommendations panel. And if you click on About the panel, you can come to this page. We've recently redesigned this to make sure that it's has good information and resources and looks nice and up to date. So information about State Advisory Council and panels, how the panel works. This executive order requirement has the summary of all of the different categories of membership that are included on the panel. The focus areas talks a little bit about the current work groups and what they're focused on. There are links to past recommendations that have come out of the panel and been approved by the Early Childhood Advisory Council, which is the Children's Cabinet, and then the roles, norms, and procedures document, which has some details about, the panel, the structure of the panel and the meetings and all of that information. Across the top, if you click on membership, you can see our current member bios. A link to apply for the panel lives here. And then information about our family engagement stipends, which would be for our lived experts or our parents with children currently receiving services from the state. This is a tough category to recruit members for, understandably. If you are a parent of a child 0 to 5 who's currently receiving services from the state, like your life is very busy and full. We all, I think, can relate in some way to that life. So understandable that it's a tough group to be able to find time to participate. But if we can, we'd really love to have that representation on the panel. Meeting information is here, and that has our current meetings, upcoming meetings, past meeting information, the Governance Summit summary, including our beautiful graphic recording and links to all of the different groups who presented. So if you're wanting to think back to a group that presented at the Governance Summit, you can come here to click and find more information. And then last, one more link to apply to the panel takes you right to the application. It's pretty fast. Asks for some basic contact information, a little bit of information about what role you fit into as far as the panel. So whether you're a local education agency, a state agency, again, a parent of a young child currently receiving services, and ask you for a little bit of personal information about short bio, what you would bring to the panel and why you're interested in it. So shouldn't take too much time to complete, but my contact info is listed here. If you or anyone else has questions, I'm happy to talk through that, provide resources, answer questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So just wanted to make sure that that was easy to find. And again, I'll make sure all of our panel members have this. We'll share it on the All In for Kansas Kids newsletter and try to make it as available as possible. But we'd love to have panel members help in sharing out this information. And of course, would love to have as many of you as possible who might be interested in continuing to serve. It's really helpful to at least have a certain amount of sort of continuity between panel years, especially as we're looking at work groups and the work that's happening. Certainly a certain amount of turnover, your life changes, different things need to be prioritized, but it's great to have at least a good number of you that are able to continue and help keep that flow going year to year. So if there's any way I can help with any of that, please reach out at any point, but wanted to make sure that that information was easy to find.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Okay, so again, the application cycle opens on April the 1st. And so we encourage all of you to reapply. But if you, but again, consider, your interest or whatnot, but it is important to have that consistency. And so, but also looking at new members. And so please feel free to, encourage you to share the link or information or whatnot with colleagues that you think might be interested in serving on the panel. So next we have bright spots. And so this is the time for you to shine, for you to share the wonderful things that are happening within your community, the organization, the state. Personally, if there's any information that you'd like to share, who would like to go first? Ms. Hillary.
Hi, this is Hillary Kane with Capata. I just wanted to share that we were able to hold home visiting program day at the Capitol on March 5th, which was wonderful. And so all of the home visiting programs that are a part of the state home visiting leadership team were represented. And not only were we there to just inform and educate, but we also had an opportunity to present to the Early Learning Caucus about all the home visiting program models, as well as have a parent that was able to give testimony about receiving home visiting services, and a educator provider that was able to come and share about the impact that she has made with some families in Kansas. So overall, it was just a really incredible day where home visiting was well represented. And as I said, just lots of information that was shared to help educate. So.
Very good. Thank you for that. I'm glad it was a success. Bronwyn.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Bronwyn Fees, and I'm excited to share that the announcement was just released on a new conference that was developed, a 4-state collaboration that includes Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and what is the other state here? Arkansas, called OK Pre-K. It's designed specifically or focused specifically on principals and administrators that are working with early childhood programs in the schools. It will take place in Branson, Missouri, July 23 through 30th. And we'll share more information, but excited to have this collaboration and support for our educators, our administrators in the public school system, focusing specifically on early childhood.
That's exciting. Very good. Very good. And you said it's specifically for public school, not community-based preschool, correct?
Right now, it's focused, this is the first conference, so it is a little bit of a pilot, but it's right now focused on principals and administrators in the public school systems. But I think certainly if it's open to anyone who would find that information relevant to them.
Very good. Thank you. Brenda.
Thank you. I'm Brenda Bandy, Executive Director of the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition. And as many of you know, we're interested in systems and policies that impact families' abilities to thrive, not only breastfeeding families, but all the conditions. And so there are two things that we are working on that I wanted to make this group aware of. One is around paid family and medical leave. We are part of a statewide coalition that has, I say recently formed, but now I think maybe we're up to a year. So I will provide information about how you can join as either an individual or as an organization to support efforts to have a state-run paid family and medical leave program in our states, which we know would benefit families and including childcare providers as well. The second thing is a reminder of our First Friday policy updates. These will continue. Many of you joined those, but I wanted to announce that I think it's May 2nd is the first Friday. Melissa Rooker will provide our state policy updates. And this coming April 4th, Logan Stensing with Zero to Thrive will provide updates as well. So I invite you to join those, and I'll provide the link to Lindsay about how to join those. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Natalie?
Good morning. I'm Natalie McLean with the KSDE Early Childhood Team. And I had a couple quick things I wanted to share. First of all, we just recently had on March 12th The monthly All In for Kansas Kids webinar featured several schools discussing their experiences operating licensed childcare facilities. We had representatives from Southern Lyon County, Kingman, Norwich, and Satana sharing their bright spots and lessons learned from experiences with childcare in their school districts. This is a great webinar if anybody wants to think about how childcare could work in their school districts. You can find that webinar recording on the Children's Cabinet site. We also have some great news for our school districts for the 25-26 school year. All Kansas schools have access to the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2 in Spanish. Questionnaires are also available to print on the screening management page. I'll provide a link for more information on how to access that.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Heather.
Good morning, Heather Schutberger with the Kansas Head Start Association. I just wanted to highlight that 2025 is the 60th anniversary of Head Start. Head Start was originally funded in 1965, and so here in Kansas, along with our regional and national partners, we are kicking off several celebrations and activities to celebrate that history of Head Start and the future of Head Start, both at the state level and in local communities. But part of that is that we are collecting stories and experiences from Head Start alumni. So if you were a Head Start child, if you were the parent of a Head Start child, or if you're a former Head Start staff member, we would love to connect with you and learn more about your experience with Head Start. We have a survey link that I possibly, if it's okay, I could share it with Lindsay, and that could be included in the follow-up materials, or someone could just feel free to reach out to me and let me know that you'd like to connect about that. Thanks.
Very good. Long history. That's cool that this is 2025. That's amazing. Good work for a long time, right? Marie.
Hi, this is Marie Trikel from CAME, and we have an exciting opportunity. We have an 18-month learning collaborative that's opened up for those folks who are interested in becoming trained on being a reflective supervisor or consultant for their own staff or for others throughout the state. And information about that and the application is on our website, which I can post in the chat. And maybe not. And so this is very exciting. It's free, and we're excited to launch that opportunity now. Thank you.
That is exciting. Very cool. Thank you. Any other bright spots, information to share? Okay, if not, thank you for everyone that shared today. There will be a post-meeting survey that Lindsay will send out following today's meeting, so look for that email. It gives you an opportunity to just provide feedback on not only today's meeting, but meetings going forward. In terms of upcoming meetings, the next Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund meeting is going to be on Friday, April the 4th from 9 to noon. It is live streamed on the Kansas Children's Cabinet's YouTube page. Our next early child recommendations panel meeting is on Friday, April the 18th at 9 o'clock. So we are going to go on ahead and take a 10-minute break. We're going to return at 10:45, where Lindsay will then have your breakout rooms open, where you can then go on ahead and have your meetings if you're choosing to meet today. I hope that you all enjoy the warm weather. It looks like perhaps old man winter is no longer present here in Kansas, and so we can actually I can go outside again. So this is all good times, and so enjoy the winter. Hope you do something fun and wonderful this weekend just for yourself. So you guys take care, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye, everyone.